Hey guys, welcome to the video. So today's going to be a bit of a different one. So just a quick question and answer from some of my subscribers. So I've had 5 questions through, which I'm going to answer today in this video. But before we go into that, if you watch these videos regularly and have not subscribed, please subscribe because it helps. The YouTube algorithm helps other people see it, helps me and you help other people by interacting with the videos, and like as well. So let's get into the video. So the first question is a question I get all the time and quite a broad and general question. So the question is, what do I eat to lose weight? And what is the best diet? So this is actually quite an easy question, but I'm going to start it by explaining what you shouldn't be doing. So most people are quite extreme with their approach. So they go from eating how they are now, their bad diet, to trying to be perfect. So it's very black and white. So it's going from bad to good, basically. And so they are basically going to cut out all the things they think are bad and trying to be absolutely perfect. The problem with that is perfect doesn't exist. And your life is busy, stressful, things happen, things are unpredictable. What usually happens is when these unpredictable things happen, then it's impossible to follow what you're doing because you are following something that is too difficult to follow when your life is not perfect. Like I said, it's hardly ever perfect, so you end up on and off the diet all the time, including also cutting out things. So your mind is always on, oh, I can't wait until I get to that period where I don't have to do this anymore. And if you cannot do something continuously forever, then it's not the right eating pattern for you. It's not the right eating structure for you. So what I advise to people is to bring it back to the basics, super back to the basics, and it doesn't need to be any more than this. So in actual fact, the eating part, the food part of diet change is probably one of the easiest parts because it's just a learning process. So what I advise for most people is just go back to the basics. So as you probably know, there are certain things we need to survive. So proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And the carbohydrates can be split into starchy carbohydrates, so things like bread, pasta, rice, that kind of stuff, and more vegetable-based things. So any vegetables, broccoli, tomatoes, spinach, things like that. And then when we think about our day, so the objective of our day is to get in nutrients and stop ourselves feeling hungry. So one mistake people usually make is have a few meals and then a few snacks in between. If you are snacking, you're probably not eating enough. And when you are snacking, you're probably eating on the wrong things because you're not getting what you need from that snack that you would have done in the meal. So what I advise for people is to have over the day 3 or 4 meals that are enough. And what is enough? So when we think about a meal, let's make it super basic, a plate and those macronutrients that I explained, the protein, fats, and carbs. So think about proteins as animal sources, so meat, fish, and dairy. So chicken, beef, pork, things like that, lamb, fish, salmon, bassa fish, haddock, all those kind of things, eggs, yogurt, those are all protein sources. So when we think of our plate or a bowl, we want to have a decent amount of protein on our plate, which keeps us full and actually helps our metabolism as well. So when you think about your protein source, think about a palm thickness and size, maybe a palm to a palm and a half of protein. And then we move on to the next thing, which is the vegetables. So vegetables are great to fill us up because they are very low in calories. So they are bulky, but low in calories. And they provide a lot of nutrients. So when we think about our vegetables, we then want to add something to our plate. So a fist to 2 fists of vegetables on our plate. So we then have protein and vegetables. And then we want to add some fat. So fat could be in various let's say, forms. So it could already be in our meat. So fattier cuts of meat will have fat in it already. We also might cook our meat in the fat as well, but also we might use fat as a dressing, so either a sauce or something over the top. Also, we might add a fat to it. So things like nuts or avocado or olive oil to the meal will add in fats. So fats are essential, and they have been demonized in the past, but they are critical for our bodily function. So we need to be getting enough. So how much is enough? So around a thumb to a thumb and a half, or a tablespoon of fats. So it's not much, but it's enough. And then throughout the day, you want to consider the starchy carbs on your plate. So these are things like bread, rice, pasta, oats, things like that. Those are starchy carbs. And these are the things that are better to reduce. Note I said to reduce, we're not cutting out carbs, but in our daily calories, we tend to overeat on our carbs. So for weight loss purposes, if you have that goal, the carbs are the best thing to reduce a little bit. So over the day, most of your meals will be the protein, fats, and vegetables based meals. And then 1 or 2 meals, depending on how much exercise you do, will have a portion of starchy carbs. So a portion of starchy carbs will be a good cupped handful of those things I mentioned. So let's say like that rather than like that, because it's a bit easier to measure. So in one hand of things like pasta, rice, bread, things like that. And so we then have our plate. And just to reiterate what I just said there, when we think about the starchy carbs, have them in one meal of the day. So most people prefer it at night because it helps you sleep, and also they're sitting down and have more time to make the meal, but also have them in a meal after you do an exercise session. So if you are doing exercise in the day, have a starchy carb source in one of your meals. So it's very simple. And that's how you eat. Nothing more to it. And then we want to consider as well things we really enjoy. And just a quick note on that, you should always be enjoying your meals. What I meant was the treats that you have, things that you really, really enjoy, things that are considered treats like chocolate ice cream, cake, things like that. So 2 to 3 times a week, having these things and really, really enjoying them, not including them as snacks or binging in the evening, where obviously that is what is stopping you reaching your goal. And at the same time, when you come to look at your results, thinking, what have I had over the week? Am I overdoing the treats? Am I having too many, or am I not having enough? That kind of thing. And really looking at it logically rather than reacting emotionally. So scattered across the week, 1 or 2, maybe 3 times a week, have something you enjoy. As something you enjoy, not to stop you being hungry, right? It's very important, because if you eat chocolate to stop you being hungry, then it's not going to satisfy, you're going to have more. So you want to make sure you're just having something you enjoy, because it has to be sustainable. And then this is the structure you follow. And we don't react emotionally to it, we react logically to it. So over the next 4 weeks, next month, you can weigh yourself once a week. But remember, weighing yourself doesn't necessarily mean how much fat loss you're getting, because the scale can fluctuate for other reasons, principally water retention. So we want to act logically of, I don't care what the scale says, I'm just going to watch it and take down the number over the next 4 weeks and see what happens. And then we can adjust. So if you are losing weight too fast, then eat a little bit more. If you're losing weight a little bit too slow, then you can eat a little bit less and adjust it. So for me, there's no other better way to eat, and this is how I teach my clients to eat. And if you are thinking of doing stuff like counting or weighing, counting points, counting calories, weighing food, and you're not getting results, come back to this. You have you shouldn't be doing something so extreme if you can't do the basics. So if you cannot follow this for at least a month before adjusting, then you shouldn't even be considering trying something harder like calorie counting, counting points, counting sins, weighing your food, all things like that. So this brings it back to basics and gets great results if you follow it. So that's basic way how to eat. There doesn't need to be a name to the diet. Don't need to be following something where you're cutting out certain things. It's very, very simple. That's the way you should be eating to lose weight, but also when you actually reach your goal, increasing food enough to sustain yourself as well. And this is just the baseline of how you should be eating. Very, very simple. Next question is, my biggest problem is snacking. I work shifts and when I get home, it's almost dinner time. So I'm eating chocolate and crisps in between. So obviously, if this person has a goal to lose weight and they're eating these things every day to fill themselves up before dinner, then they're not going to get results. And like I said before, if you're using these things to fill you up or to take off the edge of hunger, then it's not going to be great, is it? So because you're going to be dependent on them. So the thing you need to consider here is planning. With shift work, you need to be able to be planning for your meals, because if you're not getting enough food, you're going to be hungry. So of course, I don't know how your shifts work or the eating allowances, but there's always a way around this. So you need to spend some time in your week planning meals, buying food, even making meals, and taking your food with you, of course, if there's no facility to buy it that works with your current way to eat. And so you need to be able to be planning your meals over the day to be full, so you're not getting hungry, and when you get home being like hungry before food. Again, this is difficult without speaking to you, but there are ways around it. It's emotionally rewarding yourself for doing good things that work you towards your goal. So when you plan food and actually spend some time doing something that helps you get more of what you want in life, you are emotionally rewarded for it. So after a time, after a little while, you'll start to enjoy doing the stuff around food that helps you towards your goal and helps you work food into your shift pattern. Now, just a little note on getting home before dinner and snacking, depending on what time there is, maybe as well that food planning will help have your food ready for you earlier if you need to, but also just making simpler choices or better choices. So rather than crisps and chocolate, have something like a yogurt, which is a high protein, which keeps you full and gives you useful nutrients. So part of it is the choices as well, because it's easy just to go to things that are calling out to you. So it's very simple to solve, but you just need to think through it and do some planning and make better choices, basically. Next question is, my willpower is non-existent. I don't know why I'm trying so hard. So this is quite a common one as well. So with willpower, most people think that they should have willpower. However, willpower is never going to work. Let me explain why. So throughout our day, our brain is doing most of the work in the background. So we call that our unconscious brain. So I can't remember the figures, but let's say 95% of all our brain power is working in the background. And the reason for that is when you do things that are repetitive, your brain has been designed to save energy. So you basically, it's helped us survive and grow as humans. So most of what you do is in the background. Think about driving a car. If when you drove a car, you had to think as much as you did when you learned to drive every single time, think how tired you would be. That's why. So most of the things we're doing are in the background. When you're using willpower, this is your learning. This is what willpower is used to learn things and to change things. So if you're using willpower constantly to stop yourself doing things, like eating chocolate or whatever you don't want to eat, then you are going to get very tired, just like the car when you learn to drive a car. And you don't want that, because as soon as you get tired, you give in. And you cannot use your willpower forever to stop yourself doing something. So you need to have a completely different approach. The first thing to understand is our brain works with, let's say, two different languages. The language of the conscious mind, which is logic and reasoning, and the language of the unconscious mind, which is patterns, recognition, and habits. And we need to build or move our weight loss, let's say, process into the unconscious mind. And let me just explain that quickly. So a little thing to understand is that our unconscious brain does not process negative instructions. So what I mean by that is when I say to you, don't think of a purple cat with pink spots, what do you think of? Because I said don't think of it, your brain doesn't remove the don't from the sentence. You have to process negative instructions. So when you're constantly using your willpower to say, I'm not going to be eating chocolate, I'm going to be really good and not eat chocolate, you're constantly thinking about that. And as soon as that willpower goes away, or as soon as it runs out, then you've trained yourself to think about chocolate, and that's what's basically in your mind. And you do not want to be in this position, because that's what causes you to binge and emotionally eat and get all these urges and cravings. You just thought about it so much, you've trained yourself to be really good at eating chocolate. So we need to work with our unconscious mind in a way that actually supports our goal. And I've explained this in other videos. I'll pop one up here somewhere. The other thing to consider as well with willpower is motivation. So most people's motivation is what we call away from motivation. So it's driven by what they don't want. And so they're not going in any particular direction. They're just going away from what they don't want. And this doesn't help much with weight loss, because as soon as you make some progress and feel a little better about yourself, you don't have the motivation anymore, right? And you probably experienced this, because either the diet is so terrible and you hate doing it that it's not worth doing anymore, and you feel better not doing the diet, or you reached some kind of satisfaction in losing a bit of weight and old habits slip back in and you go back to where you were before. So you need a whole different approach to motivation. And again, I've explained this in other videos, but the premise of it is that you need the opposite type of motivation as well. So we call that towards motivation. So actually, what do you want? Not about what you don't want. Like, I don't want to be fat, I don't want to feel like this, I don't want to be like this anymore. What do you want? What will your life be like when you reach your goal? How will you be in every single area of your life? Career, finances, friends, confidence, relationships. How will life be? Build a picture of how you want your life to be. And this is what helps drive you. So you have a direction to go in. Like I said, if you are moving away from something you don't want, you can go in any direction. And as soon as you are away from what you don't want, let's say, relate it to another example. I'm running away from a lion. I'm running in any direction. And as soon as it's gone, I stop. We don't want that with weight loss. We want to actually have a destination. So we're working towards something. And the more and the closer you get to it, the more excited you get, and the more you are emotionally rewarded for doing the things that help you get there. So this is really important with motivation and taking it away from willpower and making sure you know what you want, why you want it, and you are motivated to get it. Next question, do I need therapy to cure emotional eating? So in my opinion, you do not. Not saying anything bad about therapists. Therapists are great and help in various ways. But quite often therapy is to bring you to realizations of why things happened and make you feel better having those realizations and closure on certain events, rather than actually giving you a solution and moving you forward. So with therapy, quite often you will look into why you have a problem, dig into it, and work out why it's caused. And this can take time. And you may never actually remember, because you never know. Because sometimes things are unremembered in the past. What you want actually is just to move forward. And I'll use an analogy to explain that. So let's say you are learning to play tennis. Let's say you swing the racket incorrectly. Do you need to know every minute detail of how you swung that racket wrongly before you change? Do you need to study it? Do you need to analyze it? No. What do you need? You need to know how to swing it instead. What's the correct way to swing it? And doing that makes you forget or overwrites what the previous swing was and ingrains the new one. So rather than digging into what was wrong and why it was wrong, you actually just need the new path and what to do instead. And that's what people are missing. They don't know what to do instead. And what that means as well is you can move straight on to fixing your problem. And what that means is that it can be fixed very fast. So the solution doesn't have to take years, months, weeks, years, like some people think. And just a side note, some people think it has to take that long because they've had it for that long. It doesn't at all. It can be solved in a few weeks. So you do not need therapy to solve emotional eating. You don't need to know why you have it or what's caused it. You just need to know what to do instead. And that's what I do with my clients. On that note, if you would like any help with this, I'll put something down in the links below. So last question today is, if I cure my emotional eating, does that mean I won't want to enjoy food anymore? And the answer is, of course, no. Curing emotional eating is basically just helping you live in line with your values. You will still enjoy food, you will still want to eat food, but it's about making the choices and sticking with the choices that you want to, living in line with your values, not being pushed and pulled around by cravings, where you end up violating your values around food and doing things you didn't really want to do. So basically, when you fix your emotional eating, you have more freedom and control around what you want to do. You live in alignment with your values. You can eat to enjoy food, but you stop when you want to. You're not out of control. So that's all it is. And some people worry, oh, I won't be able to enjoy food, so I don't want to change my emotional eating or fix my emotional eating. It's not like that at all. It's all around values of what you want to do, and you want to have that control and not lose control over your food. So I hope that helps. That is it for today. Like and subscribe as always. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And I will see you in the next video.